Next to me is the man when pulled over for going the wrong way on a one-way street, and the cop said, "Didn't you see the arrow?" Said, "I didn't even see the Indian," is Bruce the Blog.
And he's Bazzo, and you're watching Bruce the Blog goes Bazzo, Gracie.
Yes, George. You should have...
Hello again, everybody. I guess I should remain in character, right? If I have any
Right.
illusion about being any kind of actor.
Do you think our audience is going to know who George Burns is?
Well, what was that famous?
Groucho?
What was that famous expression? Nero fiddled while George burns. Okay.
Oh,
anyhow,
God.
anyhow.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Well,
Tell
boy,
them why
you know
you
something,
had the cigar.
Bazzo. If they don't know who George Burns is, I feel sorry for their youth.
Yes.
I'll go, yeah, folks. I have a cigar because my esteemed co-host and friend Bazzo and I are celebrating. We're celebrating our first anniversary on Cablevision Public Access, and we thank Cablevision and
Yes.
Cecilia
And-
Mascarilli and Richard Redmond, our director.
And-
of course, yeah, well, I'm getting to that.
You got 10 seconds, people, to say who cares.
And by the way, isn't it amazing that we're still on after a year and that we haven't like killed each other?
That's right.
So the cigar is a celebratory cigar, and as I was saying to Bazzo as we were going on the air, this also, you might say, is in homage to Red Auerbach. Now, Bazzo said he's not going to ask who Red Auerbach was, but I'm going to tell him anyhow. Red Auerbach is the immortal, longtime coach of the Boston Celtics, who won more championships. I think they won almost as many as the Yankees. I think they are second to the Yankees in professional sports championships, the Celtics. And they had that, I mean, you can't even think of a word, incredible, extraordinary run of championships in the 50s and 60s. And whenever Red Auerbach, among being a genius at coaching, was known by his trademark cigar that he would light up at the end of a game when he was assured that his team would win. So when he knew that the team was going to win a game, he'd light up a cigar.
You realize Bloomberg would go epileptic now if this was...
Yeah, well, Bloomberg's not the mayor of Boston, so I guess it doesn't
He'd still
matter.
go epileptic,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, seriously, folks, we are really happy to be celebrating our first anniversary. Time flies when you're having fun, and we do have fun on the show. And we are very, very deeply indebted to the penny saver and parent company Chase Media Group and our benefactors, Carla Chase, CEO of Chase Media Group, and Frank Rich of Chase Media Group for really, letting us do the show and
Putting up with us
and putting
Our
us on the
antics.
air. And we hope to be here for another however many
How
years,
many
right?
years
yeah,
it goes.
yeah. And we hope you enjoy it too. And to that point, Bazzo's now going to give the salute.
And I want to give this salute because the unsung people that deserve a lot of credit for this show is you, the audience. Without your viewership, your comments, to Bruce and when we run into each other in the stores or down at the train station, or when you run into Carl and Frank wherever they are and you say you saw the show and whatever reaction you gave about it, you've encouraged us to keep doing this. I know there's a niche out of a business in Cortland that watches the show. Then I was just telling Bruce, there's a niche out of the store where my brother works in Yorktown that watches the show, and he probably has niche people that he knows for sure that watch this show. And you deserve this salute because you've put up with us. You've been and you enjoyed the show. You've been angry at the show. You've been angry at our guests. And whatever it is that we're glad you're here. We hope you'll stay with us. And we also want to salute our family and our loved ones that put up with the shame of having to go out in public and says, "You know him, you live with him," and they still admit they do. So we want to thank our family, our friends that have that care about us and put up with us, and we want to thank you, the audience, and salute you, the audience, and say happy anniversary to
all right, happy.
us.
Richard, can you get? Is it well? Okay. Anyhow, here we go. All right, and we do have
One,
a lit can.
two, three. And that is a special muffin just for Bruce because he's on a diet. It's a low-fat blueberry muffin.
Of course, the thing about low-fat, which is a little bit of a myth in today's food culture, is that it's also the sugar content. So if something has low fat but has a lot of sugar, that's not good either. So.
Low fat is an interesting thing because I used to have high fat, but now it's low fat.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's moved down here.
Right. And I especially like low fat when I go to the Asian fusion restaurants and they have that dish, low fat.
Yes. He's. I know him well.
Right. And by the way, for the sports savants out there, and we know you're out there, I should go back and also annotate that. As far as the professional sports teams that have the most championships, I know the Montreal Canadiens are up there. I don't know if they're 2 and Boston's 3 or Boston's 2 and they're 3. We know the Yankees are 1.
That's all
that matters, right?
All that matters.
27 championships, and we'll see if this year brings 28.
I mean, you got to think about it. In baseball, the closest is the St. Louis Cardinals with 12. Yeah, they're the closest to the Yankees, and then they only have 12. Right, less than half.
Yeah.
Now, let's go on a couple of riffs. There's a couple of things I want to
I also want to just get a little bit of a unsolicited plug-in since I am, fiddling around with this cigar. No, the plug is not for Bill Clinton. It's for Doc James, which is in Shrub Oak in Yorktown. Adam DeCiena, the owner of Doc James. They also have a place in Mamaroneck. In any case, I go to Doc James, so I just want to mention there's a lot of good guys who hang out there, and I want to say hello to them. Hello, my Doc James
Well, listen,
friends.
I just said hello last week to my mechanic and his boss, so you can say hello to your friends at Doc James.
Right, and believe me, I'm not just blowing smoke, okay?
Right. So now I want to go on a couple of things here. Number one, the reason where Bruce the Blog goes Bazzo is because he has his blog, Bruce the Blog. I have Bazzo at work, and you can find them on North County News and Views.
Which the domain name is ncnlocal.com.
And unlike...
Also known, I'm sorry, I know it's role reversal for me to be interrupting you, but...
Right.
See, I learned something.
Yes.
Anyhow, it's also pennysavercommunity.com. You can go either place and you'll end up in the same place.
But unlike some other electronic media, you do not have to pay for this subscription to find the full content of what's on North County News and Views.
No, right.
There's no charge.
Right.
You just click on and everything is available to you, including Bruce the Blog's updates and my weekly column, in my opinion, or Bazzo at Work, whichever one they put it under, you'll find it always there. And the other thing is that.
By the way, Baz, I just thought of this. Did you ever try to Google "You May Beg to Differ" and see if you came up?
That I never did, but I did.
Your signature line.
I did Google Anthony Bazzo, and there were 15 pages. Don't forget, I've been here I'm in my 6th year with you guys, and apparently everything goes online, and it never goes away. But when you read...
it's like you're in your second trimester with us, so to speak. Yeah.
When you read Bruce the Blog, he usually concentrates on the everyday life and trials and tribulations and the aggravations of everyday life under many nom de plumes, mom and pop culture, the grammar geek, let alone just Bruce the Blog. And he has well-known pet peeves like people that park in handicapped spots.
Right.
And people that speak without thinking about what they're saying.
Right, I think just the theme of some of mine, because I'm just an old-fashioned fart, is the need for more civility in society.
Yes. Yeah. And my blog and my column is basically politics. Where if you go to the daily updates, you'll be able to find what your local officials are saying via their press releases, which are unedited.
Right.
You're not hearing what they're saying through the mouth of a reporter that decided what was important. I reprint their entire press releases. So we're in an important election cycle.
When you say the press releases are unedited,
In other words, like you get a press release, and then the reporter writes, so-and-so said. And they pick out what they think is the important or the nut of the press release.
Right.
I don't do that. I just put the whole press release up.
Oh, unedited by you.
Right.
Okay. Well, to that, because where I was going with that is, and again, Bazzo mentioned one of my noms de plume, the grammar geek. There was a press release, and I'm not going to say what candidate it came from because
it'll be on my blog. You'll find it.
Not that, but somewhat unfortunately, it could be coming from one of several candidates these days, which is the issue, and that is the lead sentence in the candidate's press release was that they were formally announced. I think I said this on a previous show, so if I'm repeating myself, excuse me for my senility.
We always have new viewers. You've got to acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's true. There could be some newborns out there watching the show. Anyhow, so I'm going to repeat myself, and I'll do it very quickly. The release said that the candidate was formally announcing, formally is a synonym for officially announcing the candidacy, and except formally was spelled Formerly, as in, I used to be a candidate. I mean, that one was one of the most inexplicable grammatical mistakes I've ever seen in any political press release, and I'm off that soapbox.
But like all of us that post on, anybody but us particularly that post online, you are subject to being judged by idiots. And I don't mind saying idiots because most of these people like to go under assumed names. So if they don't want to put their names up, I could call them names, I figured.
Right.
And like my latest column on the New York tax structure driving out business. And I got one poster that puts up, you can't name one business that left New York because of taxes.
And you're saying this person didn't put their name on it?
Not their real name, no, of course not.
Of course not.
And,
You know why? Because they're embarrassed about their own comment. They can't even bear to see the sight of their own name, which is about as pathetic as it gets.
But there was one comment that was interesting. He says, you'll find that most people who are against my point of view are the people that live off the government.
Right.
The tax eaters, not the taxpayers.
Right.
And that's true. But
the ones who want handouts.
Right.
Right. But by the way, Bazzo, because in my own warped way, I do think about these things more than any normal person would or probably should. But the internet culture, there's a lot of different things about the internet culture, good, bad, and indifferent. But one of the things about it, that again goes along with these themes that I have in a lot of my blogs about how people's behavior leaves more to be desired than we would like. And in the internet, we have what I think are euphemisms like anonymous,
Right.
or pseudonym, and they're euphemisms. In the internet culture, when somebody posts something under anything other than their own name to remain under a rock or to put a bag over their head while they're trying to insult you, to me, don't say it's anonymous and don't say it's a pseudonym. It's being a coward.
Right, exactly.
And so those are euphemisms. They're sort of sugarcoating the fact that you're being a gutless coward without a spine if, and I want to make the qualification, I've said this before in the air, so if you want to turn this off because you're sick of hearing me say it, I understand. If you're going to insult somebody who's posted a comment, put your name on it. I could even...
Stab us in the front, don't stab us in the back.
Well, I could even sort of understand if you're going to make a rather neutral or innocuous comment. I'm not sure why you wouldn't put your name on it, but that's a sort of a different category. If you're going to take aim at somebody and attack them, have the what,
right.
Whatever gender you may be, have the nerve, whatever gender you may be, to own your opinion.
I agree. But I'll tell you what's also frustrating. We live in New York. We live in Westchester, northern Westchester. Now, the show goes from 684 all the way down to Mount Kisco and Ossining in that area. But we are represented by a certain group of people that say, and you got others that are running for those seats in this area.
I didn't even know what you meant were elected officials.
Elected
when you say
officials.
Okay. All right.
But we got people running for these seats. We got people in these seats, and there's not a spit of difference between them because they all say, we want to fight for lower taxes. We want to fight to create jobs, except that we're not going to allow Indian Point to stay open. We're not going to allow fracking. Now, I say this for a reason. In Monday, there was a story in the paper. This was Monday the 11th?
Yes, it was.
The story in the paper.
All
On
day.
the ballot in North Dakota is a measure now to eliminate property tax because of their success at mining fossil fuels has given them a $9 billion surplus.
Eliminate property tax
Yes.
or lower it?
Eliminate, because they don't need it. Because the tax revenue generated not just the mining of the fossil fuel, but the support jobs and the support industries that have grown up around this mining, this fossil fuel industry has created a $9 billion surplus in the revenue of North Dakota that they
Wow.
want to. Now, I'm not saying we can get that here in New York because our budget in New York starts at $132 billion and then goes up from there. But if you don't think that if we capitalized on the fossil fuels that we can get out of New York, whether it be fracking or drilling or the nuclear power, we could put a major, and also allow the gambling, we could put a major dent and bring the cost of living where we wouldn't, our greatest export would not be high income earners,
Right.
which is our greatest export. Yet you have our elected, we want jobs, we want lower taxes, are standing in the way
Right.
of the future. And we're not talking, that's why they're fighting to raise the minimum wage, because they're standing in the way of good paying jobs coming to New York. So, of course, we got to raise the minimum wage and chase more businesses out.
Right.
And this drives me nuts because there's not a spit of difference. And we've had these candidates on our show. Not a spit of difference between these candidates. So where come November, you do not have competing ideas for people to choose from. All you have is competing degrees of the same idea.
Right.
And as a commentator, as a political wonk, and as a voter, it is a frustrating thing to be represented by economic imbeciles.
Well,
And
but-
I'm not afraid to say that because they are.
Well, the other issue, overarching issue with politics, and I know in a recent column you wrote about Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin and used the phrase political will, but it's that candidates don't have, not enough candidates, very few, if any, have the political will to actually agree with an opponent, right?
Right.
Because they're afraid then, they're not going to distinguish themselves or they're going to offend people in their party. But it's that's sort of a corollary, a variation on what you're saying, that they all sort of come out in the same place, but they say it in a different way, right? Because they're afraid they don't have the political will or the courage to actually agree with an opponent, even if it's the right thing to do.
What bothers me is, and we know this elected official had won against his own party,
Right.
has won against the other party, is undefeated because the people supported him. Yet now, he's turned his back on these people and has now moved over to the special interest because he's afraid he can't win an election without the special interest. Like I've said in 2-3 columns, I'll follow the money. See who's giving it. Why they turn their back on the voters? Why all of a sudden they doubt their very same supporters that have been with them? And he's not the only one. There are others.
Right.
But why a politician would doubt the people that have supported them time and time again, and the minute they get where they can make a difference, have decided not to make a difference, but instead of public service, go into self-service. I don't understand this at all.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And it drives me crazy, and it's frustrating, at least on the national level. You do have competing ideas. you have Obama, you have Romney, and they have literally competing ideas where people can see a difference.
Right.
In the congressional section, you have competing ideas. You have where they talk about the extreme right. It's always extreme right wing, but never extreme left wing. You ever notice that?
Right.
It's never extreme left wing. It's always
Well,
the extreme right
come
wing.
no, but lately that has come out. Well, what about MoveOn.org?
Well, they were called progressive.
Progressive? Okay,
They were
well,
called progressive.
right.
But if you're conservative, you're extreme right wing, and it's amazing how you're called right wing, you're called extremist when you fight for what you believe in.
Right.
But if, as a conservative, then you're an extremist. But if you're a Democrat and you fight for what you believe in, you're called principled.
Well,
And that's the media.
called that by whom?
The media.
By the Democrat.
The media.
Well,
The mainstream media on both sides. On both sides, they're the same.
What is the mainstream media? Define it.
Mainstream media is your 247.
Well, okay, you mean CBS, NBC, and NBC.
Right, the top network on cable is Fox, but
Yeah,
even
and that's mainstream too,
Yes,
by the way.
I agree, but
Yeah.
when you deal with audience, they don't have nearly the.
What? Fox has a larger audience than any of those cable news.
Yeah, but they don't have a larger audience than the major network.
Well, things are changing, because I studied this at Newhouse in Syracuse, public
Okay.
communications. It used to be, and I'm still, a quote-unquote student of media, obviously. It used to be in, like, the 70s when I went to school, the networks had something like a 90+%
Right.
audience share. Now it's like 50 to 60%.
Yeah, but that's
because
still-
it's so fragmented among
Yeah,
the...
but that's millions of viewers difference between cable and network, even when you're only talking a 20% differential between
The
that.
difference
You're
is
talking
the
about-
difference is MSNBC and Fox are explicitly partisan. CNN is somewhere vaguely there.
Which is why they have the lowest rating they've had in 20
Who?
years,
Who?
CNN. They've got the lowest rating they've had in 20
But
years.
they're
because you're right.
But they end
No,
up in they're more middle of the road at least
and
than
that's
either
why
of
they
the.
have the lowest rating, because people turning now into news
Right.
don't want milquetoast. People are
Yeah,
engaged.
you know what they want?
People are
They want
engaged.
their own opinions to be reinforced. They don't want to be challenged.
But that's always been the way of the news. Yeah, back when newspapers first came into the country, when they were protected by the First Amendment, well, why they were protected, on their banner
Right.
had to be the political party that they were supporting. It was right on
Well,
their
you
banner.
notice, and I know we've commented on this, that in recent years it's very noticeable, at least to me, to you, and to other political observers and commentators, that campaign ads now, in many cases, don't even list what party the person's running on.
Not even the campaigin signs.
Right, they don't even say which is unheard. Remember, it used to be unheard
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
And this,
Remember, vote row A all the way. Right.
I mean, it's like you're embarrassed of who
Right,
you
that's
are.
right. They're embarrassed to say what party they're with.
So they're probably anonymous posters.
Well, because
on
they want
blocks,
the well,
too.
and it's also obviously they want the crossover
I
vote.
mean, didn't you just have?
And because independents are so
You
influential.
were just talking off the air with me that you had the Grace Note show you did with Tom DiCaro of the winery.
And Yorktown
you were-
supervisor,
right,
Michael Grace, yeah.
And you had opened a bottle of wine, and then you had an anonymous email sent to you.
Right, saying, who thought it was a good idea to drink alcohol on the air? Now, the person, whether on purpose or not, did not have a name attached to it. Now in this case, it was a text from a phone, and sometimes you think your name may be visible. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't intend to be anonymous, but obviously I'm not going to defend it because there's no defense needed. I mean,
Well-
it's such a silly.
Well, the truth, let's face it, there's no truth to the rumor that it was Nick Bianco, right? There was no truth to that rumor, right?
But there, no, I mean,
No.
I mean, we're all of age, and we were doing a little bit of a wine taste. The whole thing was silly,
It is
People, listen, I'm glad somebody voiced their opinion. That's all.
By the way, how was this wine?
It was very good. Centennial Wine, which is the winery's own brand, on the 100th anniversary. We're celebrating our first anniversary the Old Stone Church that the winery in Shrub Oak is in is celebrating its 100th anniversary, and it was very, very good wine.
Well, considering the play you were in previously, you were probably around for that first.
That's true. When I played the 107-year-old man. That's
Right.
right. Yeah. Erroneous.
So when you were erroneous, you probably went to the Old Stone Church when it was a
Yeah,
church.
yeah. When I was about 7 years old.
That's
yeah,
what I
right.
mean. Were your brists.
Right. That's right.
Anyway, but people have to be frustrated when they listen to these politicians here in New York. I mean, like I said, you saw what happened in Wisconsin was not the triumph of money,
Right.
but the triumph of ideas.
Right.
Because nobody wants to count the manpower the union sent to Wisconsin as money.
Right.
But it is money. Time is money. You
Yeah.
know this.
Right.
I know this.
Right.
Time is money. So the money expenditure was pretty well even. But you saw people fed up with an entitlement culture from the middle class, saying, you owe me a better life than you have. And the people said, we don't owe you that, and we're only asking you to do a little bit.
But you know, where I very often come out on these issues, and including this one, is, listen, there are elements of truth on both sides of that, right? Whether it's the 99% or the 1%, there's truth on both sides.
Oh, I don't believe that because you had the propaganda going in that the sky was going to fall if Walker got his.
No, but what I'm talking about, Bazzo, is that it's not healthy to have a lopsided economy.
I agree, and now you know what? I'll tell you what's annoying. I'll tell you what's annoying here in New York, and this is why we have a bunch of gutless imbeciles representing us, and I'm mad and I'm angry.
I couldn't tell.
You have a school teachers union who is fighting tooth and nail to protect the incompetent and perverts.
Perverts?
Yes, the ones that are accused of sexual contact with.
The operative word being accused.
I don't care.
Alleged.
I don't care what it is, but they're fighting tooth and nail not to fire these people, even when they've been judged guilty of their thing. They put them in a rubber room, but you can't fire them. And the legislature won't give the power to fire them because the unions are fighting to protect these incompetent people who are sucking up our tax dollars because they want those union dues. And when a union loses sight of who they work for and what their mission is, and the teachers' union mission is to educate the students, not to fill your own pockets, not to protect the worst among you. It is to get rid of the worst among you. And
well, it's like they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Problem is you have, again, and this includes our governor, none of them will put up any kind of legislation, any kind of reform with teeth that will say the worst among you will no longer be supported by the taxpayers.
Let me ask you this as we have to wrap it up anyhow, do you belong to a taxi and limousine union?
No.
You don't?
There is not one. I've had chances in other parts of my life to join unions, and I won't do it. Because, again, it's about serving themselves and not even their membership.
Right.
They're serving themselves. Look what happened in Wisconsin when they passed the law that the government's no longer mandated to collect the union dues for the union.
I mean, for public unions.
Yeah. They've lost 40% so far of their membership. That says, good, now we don't have to give money to something we don't believe in.
Right.
And have them spend it on causes we're not supporting.
Well, who is collecting the dues then?
Now it's up to the unions
to collect it themselves.
Right, yes. Right. Look what happened with the MTA when they lost the right for the government to because.
So how does that translate into people disenfranchising themselves from the union?
They're not disenfranchised.
You just said that the membership is down.
They made a choice. And they said, we're not going to give money to you because you're taking that money and supporting causes we don't agree with. Not every member.
Well, and you know how I feel about that. No, you know how I am about that. Over the years, I've gone, very much on record in writing. No civic organization or public group should be endorsing candidates because you can't possibly fairly represent all the individual views of your members.
And we're going to.
And you have no right endorsing candidates.
And we're going to close with that because this was my opinion. And you may beg to differ. Thank you for a year, and we're going to have a lot more.
And when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. And I also, as Bazzo has said, really sincerely, with all joking and puns aside, thank you very much for sticking with us. And we look forward to more of the same.
See you next week.